You should have known better. That's the voice. It's not a stranger's voice or your boss's voice. It's yours. The one that shows up the second you send an email with a typo in it, or replay a pause in a conversation for the rest of the day, wondering what it meant. The one that would never say those words to a friend, but says them to you like a broken record. What you don't realize about that voice is this. It's fast, and it's confident, and it sounds like it's just being honest. But it's a strategy dressed up as truth, an old one. Criticize yourself first, and you get ahead of the failure before anyone else can hand it to you. If you've already convinced yourself you're not good enough, or undeserving, or don't belong, then you're already braced for it. This harshness isn't an accident or personality. It's your subconscious trying to protect you. If you're hard enough on yourself, you can prevent the failure, the disappointment, the embarrassment before it happens. This isn't about willpower or discipline. It's a belief running underneath, one you didn't choose and probably don't remember learning. By the end of this video, you'll understand why your subconscious is still running the old operating system. I'll get to that in a minute, because that part changes how you respond to the voice, not just what you think about it. For a lot of high achievers, this doesn't register as harsh. It registers as having standards. You extend patience to everyone around you, generously, automatically. Someone else misses a deadline and you find a reason for it before they even explain themselves. You miss the same deadline and the voice is already building a case against your character. You're probably the one people lean on, the one who doesn't drop the ball. So when you do, even something small, the critic treats it like proof you can't be trusted with the reputation you've built. That gap, giving grace to everyone else but not yourself, is a clue that the critic is guarding something, not measuring your performance. Think about the last time you made a small mistake at work. Not a catastrophe, something ordinary, a typo in an email to a client. Maybe you caught it immediately, maybe someone pointed it out. Either way, notice what happened next, the aftermath, the replay, the mental footage of the moment, running again and again, each time with a slightly sharper narrator. This replaying is your nervous system treating a typo like it might be evidence of something bigger, whether you're competent, whether you're good enough, or if you're even allowed to relax. Or think about a conversation where someone paused just a beat too long before responding to you. You noticed, of course you noticed everything, and some part of you decided, without saying so out loud, that the pause meant disapproval, even though you had no real evidence for that. That's the critic again, dressed up as intuition this time. It reads ambiguous moments and fills in the worst possible meaning, because if you assume the worst, then you can't be caught off guard or disappointed. So let me tell you a story about a time when one small moment triggered days of self-judgment. I once worked with a client I'll call Emma. She was the kind of person everyone described as thoughtful. In her mid-30s, she was the friend who always checked in, remembered birthdays, and made people feel genuinely cared for. Then one ordinary evening, something small happened. She sent a text to one of her closest friends after noticing they'd seemed a little distant. The message went unanswered until the next day. It wasn't unusual. Her friend had disappeared for a day or two before. There was no argument, no conflict, no reason to think anything was wrong. But for Emma, the story didn't end there. She spent the next 2 days replaying every recent interaction. She reread old messages, wondering if she'd said too much or somehow pushed her friend away. The silence became evidence in her mind that she'd done something wrong. She waited for the conversation where her friend would explain why, but that never came. A day later, her friend apologized. A family emergency had consumed their attention. They hadn't been upset with Emma for a second. But something much older had already been activated. A belief that relationships could disappear without warning, and that if someone pulled away, it probably meant she'd caused it. The unanswered text was never the real problem. It was an old pattern convincing her that every moment of distance meant she had to earn her place in someone's life all over again. Beliefs like this rarely start in adulthood. More often they begin in childhood, where approval feels unpredictable, affection feels conditional, or children learn to monitor other people's emotions to stay connected. Over time, self-criticism becomes protection. Shame yourself into being better so you don't risk losing those connections. That becomes so internalized that you no longer even realize you're doing it. Being hard on herself wasn't a flaw Emma developed because she lacked confidence. It was a strategy her subconscious learned long ago. The unanswered text was small. What it triggered wasn't about the text at all. It was an old wound saying she had to keep proving she was worthy of being loved, accepted, and enough. This is the part I promised earlier. Your body still runs that old strategy because your nervous system doesn't update on logic alone. You can know intellectually that a typo won't end your friendship or career. Your nervous system doesn't care about that knowledge. It cares about familiar patterns. And the pattern it learned is that being critical of yourself, followed by improved behavior, followed by relief, equals a feeling of security. Somewhere in there, your subconscious decided your value still has to be earned or proven, one flawless moment at a time. So every time the critic activates and you correct or prevent the mistake, and then the anticipated disaster doesn't happen, your subconscious files that away as proof the harshness worked. It's not going to stop volunteering for a job it believes it's succeeding at. This is where most approaches end up backfiring, because forcing the critic to back off or trying to drown it out with empty compliments treats it like it's an opponent to defeat. But the critic isn't working against you, it's protecting you the only way it knows how, getting ahead of failure before anyone else can hand it to you. Understanding that job matters more than fighting it. Once you understand that your inner critic actually has good intent, that it's just going about it in a not so productive way, you can build a different type of relationship with that part of yourself. So try this practice for the next week and keep it small on purpose. The next time you notice the critic activate, whether it's a typo, a pause in conversation, or a task you didn't finish, pause before you respond to it. Skip the argument and skip the agreement. Just name what's happening. This is the old strategy trying to protect me from being caught off guard. Then, without fixing anything or proving anything, just do one ordinary thing next. Send the follow-up email, continue the conversation, let the moment pass without the internal trial. That's the whole practice. It'll feel uncomfortable because you're asking your nervous system to tolerate a perceived mistake without punishing it. And that discomfort is a sign you're doing something your body hasn't practiced before. A second version of this practice, if you want to go further, at the end of the day where something didn't go perfectly, instead of reviewing what you should have done differently, name one moment where you were imperfect and nothing catastrophic happened. You stayed human in front of other people, and the relationship, the job, the respect, they stayed intact anyway. You're not trying to convince yourself you did great. You're giving your nervous system a data point that contradicts the old belief, one small piece of evidence at a time. Now, none of this means the critic disappears. High standards and real drive aren't the problem here. They never were. They're strengths that got fused with fear somewhere along the way. Your goal here is to stop needing that voice to feel like the only thing standing between you and disaster, while still getting to keep the part of you that cares about doing things well. The idea is to give your inner critic a different job, one that's rooted in intention, not fear. If you take one thing from this video, let it be a different question. Stop asking why you're like this. Start asking what you learned growing up about your worth that made this pattern feel necessary. Your patterns make sense. Once you understand where they came from, they begin to loosen their grip and you can start changing them. This belief that you have to catch yourself before anyone else can is exactly the kind of subconscious belief I dig into in my book. It's called Unpacked, How to Detach from the Subconscious Beliefs That Are Sabotaging Your Life. If this pattern sounds like you, the link in the description will get you the first chapter for free. It walks through where beliefs like this one get built and what it takes to update that operating system. Be sure to subscribe for therapist-backed videos on high-functioning anxiety, perfectionism, people-pleasing, and unprocessed trauma. I'll see you in the next one.